The secret to our success, we talk about this a lot. I think it's having a great quality product, but I think it's that we have an item that is very close to people's hearts, and it's a tradition and it's nostalgic. And I think that's what keeps people coming back. I think for me as well as some of our customers, it truly does take us back to our childhood when things were maybe a little bit less complicated and easy. Maybe we're missing a loved one. And so I think getting to be around those sounds and noises and sights, we get to relive and carry on a part that's missing or that's gone. In my younger years, my dad was a singer and he managed and sang at one of Jack Ruby's clubs called the Carousel. I guess his style was what they would call a crooner, and his idol was Frank Sinatra.
Remember me to your ma and pa when you drop a line, tell me how they are. Then, darling, remember me to you. Remember me, darling. Remember me to the...
We use a lot of seasonal employees, but a lot of them are also return employees. And by that, I mean some of our staff has been with us for over 40 years. I would say there is a few dozen employees that we have had for more than 10, 15, and 20 years. Again, I think for us, it's all about family. It's a family business, and a lot of our employees and our staff, they become like family to us as well as our customers. And I think that's also one reason that we're successful. I really just think that for us, it's our purpose. And I don't know exactly fully what it is or what it's developed, but it's a purpose and it's a drive, and it's getting to be a part of people's lives and customers' lives. But it is a passion. It's something that gets in our blood and our DNA. And I can't quite describe it, but I mean, it's all I've ever done. I knew as a small child that this was what I was going to do and who I was going to be. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. It's always such an honor to get to talk about my family's legacy and the history that is Fletcher's Corny Dogs. During the State Fair of Texas, we get to do a lot of media, which is so much fun, but it's usually very short. And so I don't get time to really talk about the people that were the founders and those that went on after that made the company what it is. And so I'm excited to share with you guys tonight a little bit about the history. So Fletcher's original State Fair Corny Dogs was started in 1942 by brothers Neil and Carl Fletcher. They were vaudeville performers from Missouri. They came to Texas during the Great Depression in the 20s. They were fourth and fifth generation showmen and performers. They acted the majority of their lives. My grandfather, Neil Fletcher, actually began acting at the age of 5. He was the youngest of 8 children, and his father died at 4 years old. And so it was said that at 5, he began singing and playing the ukulele in bars and saloons to help make a living for his family and his siblings. I can't even imagine what it must have been like in the early 1900s at that age, already making a living. But it was just who he was. Again, like there was generations of them, and this is what they did. They sang, they danced, and they acted, and it was just very much in their blood. And so I don't know exactly what took Neil and Carl and Neil's wife, Minnie, my grandmother, to Texas in the 20s, but I know that they came to Dallas and they performed in nightly shows on the side of Haskell Street in Dallas in a production company called the Madcap Players. Being the producer, my grandfather had a lot of different roles and responsibilities, being the producer as well as acting. It was said that he often played, the handsome guy, and his wife played the dumb blonde, and that he often would play the drunk as well, which he was a natural act at. And so that was from when they moved until 1938, when they were actually playing in a show at the State Fair of Texas called The Drunkard. And they did that for 2 years, and in 1938, it was more towards the end of vaudeville that they got an opportunity to run a food booth at the State Fair of Texas. There is another story about how they got a food booth, which isn't talked about as much because it was mostly something that I read. I was told that they may have gotten the food booth in a poker deal, but I don't have a lot of facts to back it up, and so that story usually just kind of stays on the back end. But I do wonder if that was just, a hand of luck that they ended up getting that food booth that year. So Fletcher's, not really being cooks and being performers, weren't really sure what to do or what to offer, what they could provide. But there was a dish that they were fond of over on Oak Lawn that was an immigrant baker at the time. He did cornmeal and meat, some type of dish that was baked in. It looked like ears of corn, and it was a dish they enjoyed. And so they thought about how they could recreate this dish. I don't know who came up with what or what idea came where. I do know they said that Carl was the one that had the idea of putting it on a stick and frying it. And from there, they said it took a couple years to really kind of develop it. In the beginning of inventing the corny dog, they still performed and acted and did other things like that while they were coming up with this recipe. You know, today, if you want cornmeal or cornbread, you can just go to the store and you can just buy multiple boxes of different brands and just find one you like. You know, too much sugar, not enough sugar, whatever. That wasn't the case, obviously, as you know, in the late 30s or early 40s. They were sitting there with flour and cornmeal and sugar and different ingredients, just perfecting it. It had to be a specific texture. If it was too runny, it would go off the dog. It would blow up in the fryer. If it was too dry, then it just wasn't palatable. So it took them quite a few years to develop this. And it said when they introduced it at the State Fair of Texas, people actually didn't know what it was, and they weren't sure if they wanted it, but they would cut them up into bite-sized pieces, give them away as samples to people, and said that people always came back. The very first year, they did $8,000 in sales in 17 days, which would be the equivalent of $120,000 today. For a new item that was unheard of, I would say they did pretty great. So that was in 1942. From 1942 to 1988, my grandfather and his brother Carl ran the Fletcher operation. They did the State Fair of Texas. They did some other local events. In 1960 to 63, my grandfather actually opened a diner over off Samuel L. Boulevard. He also did some frozen product at one time, didn't last very long. He tried some at theaters, didn't last long. You know, as an entrepreneur, I think he had ideas and there was a good product, but he said he just really wanted to play golf. So that's what he did. I'd like to take a minute and talk about the photos. This is one of the earliest photos of our operations that I've ever seen. And I love that it says Fletcher's Canine Corny Dog. And a lot of people have asked me about that canine, and I assure them it was beef and pork. There was no dog. But this is one of my most favorite photos. It just really shows the time that it was taken. This one also as well. You can see over on the tree on the right side, it's one of the first appearances of our mascot, Mr. Corny. He has changed throughout the years, but he still remains a corny dog. And you can see the woman holding the corny dog on the right is my grandmother, and my grandfather is in the middle. And this was Fletcher's Canine. Again, you see that canine. There was actually several names in the beginning of the company. There was Fletcher's Corny Dogs, Fletcher's Canine, Hot Dog on a Stick. Brown Bomber was also a name that did not stick very long. Talking about the Madcap, this is one of the playbills from one of the events that they had. It was the 10th anniversary, and just wanted to include it to show just a really interesting playbill from that time. Let's see. Okay, so my grandfather, again, he loved acting and singing. And so he even performed up until, this is actually from the Bonnie and Clyde in 1960s. This is one of the shots he played the bank teller. As much as he loved corny dogs, my grandfather loved acting and performing. He did other movies in the 60s, a lot of Monster from the Deep. He was in Mars Needs Women. He did about 10 other movies. I can't remember the names. They were just some off-the-wall things, but he really loved acting and continued to do that. Here's the diner that I was talking about. So I don't know why it only lasted 3 years, if it just wasn't a good location. I know it was across from Tennyson golf course, but it was 3 years, and I'm not really sure. So there's a lot of questions that I wish I could ask him so I could do better. But here's just another photo. I love this photo. I'm not sure exactly who the man is in the photo, but I love seeing, you see all the corny dogs piled up, and you see the fryers full. Just thinking about the demand and the night, and it has that fair vibe in life. And so now I'm skipping ahead, so I'll stop on this one. So my grandfather operated the company until 1988, which was his passing. Again, he really enjoyed spending time with family and playing golf and doing other things. He loved Fletcher's Corny Dogs, but at that point in his life, he really just wanted to spend more time with his family. And this is when my dad and my uncle come in. My father, Skip, or everyone called him Skip, but his name was Neil Fletcher, and his brother, Bill. They ran the company from 1988 to 2007. And one of the many adventures that Fletcher's had during the 80s and 90s when the second generation was owning it was that they opened up a number of brick and mortars throughout Dallas, as well as Oklahoma and Arizona. This is one of the grand openings that they did in one of the restaurants in DFW. The man holding the balloons is my grandfather, Neil. To the right is his son, Skip. Skip's wife, Gigi, who's here in the audience tonight, as well as some sons and his brother, Bill, on the right. And so it was a really interesting time. Every generation of Fletchers gets to have kind of their own spin on this iconic brand. One thing that always ends up happening is that the family, we love to go and work, but we also really love to go and play golf and relax and spend time with our family. And so in the 80s and 90s, there was a multitude of franchises that happened. And, sorry, I'll go back to a different photo. Okay, so there was a multitude of franchises, and in the early 90s, between the oil crisis and just the economy, essentially those restaurants started to shut down. There was a lot of lessons learned there that my parents have taught me and my brother about growing an iconic company, that just because the demand is there doesn't mean you always have to say yes to something. So my brother and I are learning what events fit our company, fit our brand. You know, as my brother and I are third generation owners, we're really wanting to take this very precious, special gift that my grandfather has left a legacy for us. And we want to make sure that we are carrying it on in a way that honors them and makes them proud, but we're having fun with what we're doing that's new, that makes it more accessible to people. But still, we really love, gaining the wisdom of those that went and did before us. And one of those was growing too fast, maybe doing things that you weren't just quite prepared for yet. My mother also said that when raising small children, it took so much time away. And again, they just would rather spend time with family and play golf. So I always have to include this photo because it really makes me laugh. So Carl Fletcher, that's not him on the left. That is Neil. That's my grandfather's best friend. But for many, many years, I thought that was my grandfather's brother, but it's not. We don't have many pictures of Neil. He was older. There's not a lot of photos of him. There was a fire that destroyed a lot of things. I don't have a lot of stories about Carl either. And even though this is not Carl, to me, that's Carl. And that's the only way I can picture him. But that is my grandfather. And I would say this photo, based on the shirt, is probably from the late 60s. Going back to the second generation, this is my dad, Skip, on the right, and his brother, Bill, my uncle, and they again ran it from the 1988 to 2017. So during their time running the company, we started to go more into festivals and events. We did things like the Byron Nelson, but the State Fair of Texas was always our home. Another thing that the second generation did was they started to introduce new corny dogs for people. From 1942 to 1994, for example, mustard was the only condiment that you can have. We did not offer ketchup to people. It wasn't until there was enough demand from people moving into Texas that in 1994, we finally offered ketchup. So that was the first thing we offered to people. And then in 2004, my dad, loving spicy food, he offered the jalapeno and cheese corny dog, which is a beef and pork corny dog with jalapeno peppers and cheddar. Later on, we introduced a turkey dog and a vegetarian dog, which was my idea. And he said that his dad would probably be rolling over if he knew we had a vegetarian dog. But in 2015, the need and the want for vegetarian items, whether for dietary purposes or animal cruelty reasons, a vegetarian option just seemed like a good fit, and it's been growing in popularity ever since. So one thing I'd like to talk about again is going back to the second generation here. We've been in business for 79 years, and the media is so great to our family, and they love to talk about Fletcher's and all the great things we've done, how we feed 500,000 people in 24 days. That's 60,000 pounds of hot dogs, it's 1,500 gallons of mustard and 900 gallons of ketchup that we go through. And Fletcher's gets to have a lot of fun. We have fed celebrities and dignitaries such as Julia Child, Oprah Winfrey, Governor Rick Perry, and all of those things are so fun and they're so great, and they're really just what makes this company just really fun. That, and we have the best customers. But I also like to touch on, for other entrepreneurs out there, is that, in this 80 years of a company, we have dealt with bankruptcy. My father, he lost 3 sons in his lifetime. They say that no parent should ever have to bury their child, and he lost 3 sons. Illness, lawsuits. There was so much that I felt like could have taken this company down, that maybe other companies might not survive, but I felt the fortitude of my parents and my uncle to carry on this tradition and legacy, and the great thing that is Fletcher's. It was just, again, there was a lot of fortitude with this family. And so I like to mention that because there's other entrepreneurs, especially during 2020, that may kind of have lost some hope, or maybe they had to pivot, or they don't know what their next step is. And I really like to encourage people that, it just takes one great idea and a lot of passion. My father and my grandfather, they didn't have college degrees. I don't even think my grandfather had a high school degree. And look at this legacy that he created, not only for his family, but for customers, for generations. We'll go talk with people in line at the fair, and they will talk about they've been coming every year because their parents brought them and their parents brought them. How beautiful is that to give somebody, and that we get to carry it on. And so now on the 3rd generation, there's 3 of us. It's my brother and my cousin and myself, and we've been running the business for 5 years with our mother's guidance. And I would say that even though I was raised in the business, I was terrified when my father passed, basically leaving this incredible, iconic brand that he had been running for 40 years. And even though I was raised in it, I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. I was so scared that we were going to mess it up somehow, or that we were going to hurt it. And I think he'd be really proud of what we've done in 5 years. In the last 5 years, we've taken an event or a company that, essentially did one large event a year and a multitude of small events, maybe 5 to 15 events a year. And in 2019, I'll back up, we purchased, let me see. So this is my dad, Skip Fletcher. And this is my mother, Gigi. This is them at the fair in the 70s. So the one on the left is my cousin, William, that's an owner, me and my brother, Aaron. The man on the right is my older brother that's passed away, and the woman is my cousin's mother, who unfortunately has also passed away. I love this photo, though, with all the children and siblings and cousins. I love this photo because they had no idea that we would be the 3 to end up running the company as we got older. And that's me and my dad. This was when we had one of the franchises, and I just loved the big yellow billboard. 2019, my brother and I purchased 2 food trucks, which have been roaming the community the last few years. And we had no idea that these food trucks that we purchased just to do events and festivals would end up saving our lives during COVID in 2020. We took, an event company that did, like I was saying, 5 to 10, 15 events a year. And in 2020, we did over 100 events and over 150 in 2021. And that's just incredible. And we feel that we've really been able to grow the company, mainly because we have such amazing customers that want our product. They're so used to it from the fair. They have this nostalgic connection to it. And they want it outside of the State Fair of Texas. And we didn't want to say no. So we started doing all these events. This was actually in 2017. This was us celebrating our 75th anniversary. That is my brother and I. And the fair gave us this really beautiful memorial that we got to use to celebrate. This is my brother and my mother and I, and Mr. Corny. Okay, so I'll get to this one in a minute. I love this photo. So again, like I was saying, so each generation gets to kind of put their own spin on the company, and I've seen what my grandfather's done and what my parents have done, and now my brother and I, we're doing the food trucks. We started doing catering during COVID. we even started doing something called Gold Belly, which is nationwide shipping. And so now we have shipped to over 40 different states in the U.S. We get their orders in. We fry everything freshly, just like we do at the state fair. Everything that comes in immediately is fresh, fried, and then frozen, and then overnight shipped on dry ice the next day. And we've done over 40 states, including Hawaii. And I really want to know who's ordering corny dogs in Hawaii. And I feel I must go to find out who this person is. Let's see. Another thing that Fletcher's has started doing in this new generation is we've started doing concessions. You can find us at places like UNT for Mean Green football, Texas A&M at Kyle Field, and now we're up in Oklahoma at OU at Gaylord Memorial Stadium. And this is such a dream come true because a few years ago, my brother and I talked about a lot of people that have moved away from Texas or just people that haven't experienced us in other states. And we started talking about what would it be like to not only just do Fletcher's Corny Dogs in DFW, but to maybe expand it a little bit more, maybe even go nationwide. It's in some way at some point. And so going to Oklahoma was kind of that first step for us. So I'm really excited for that. And we've been feeding Sooner fans for decades during the State Fair of Texas. And so it just really made sense for us. So this is one thing that I love. So we're an 80-year-old company, and I don't know how Fletcher's has become this phenomenon that it is, and I'm so grateful every day because I'll never understand. So one thing that I love about an iconic company is you have just really become part of your fans' family, and just that you're important to them. When people get married in front of big text at the state fair with corny dogs saying we're getting married. People have Fletcher's Corny Dogs at their weddings now. People love Fletcher so much and want to incorporate us into their family or into their life that they have us on the most special day of their life. And so we get to do weddings. People have even named their children Fletcher. This little boy was named Fletcher because his parents said they just love Fletcher's Corny Dogs so much, and it was really important and special to them. People also name dogs Fletchers. They get Fletcher Corny Dog tattoos, Fletcher wedding cakes, Fletcher cookies, painted on rocks, crochet, all kind of fun things. So, and I love this photo because, again, as a third-generation entrepreneur, doing what we've always done, but expanding it a little bit. We thought we knew what we were doing, what was going on, and we thought we had a really good handle on things. And then 2020 hit, and essentially everything was canceled. All of our events were wiped out, everything we had worked so hard to do. And as an event company, or if you're in the restaurant industry and you have to basically close down, it is very, very scary and devastating. And we didn't know what we were gonna do, especially the thought of not having a state fair. But in early COVID, we actually had an anonymous donor send us to one of the local police departments and cater to the police officers to boost morale during COVID. And so we accepted and we went and did this. This led on to us being invited to go feed first responders at hospitals, fire stations, medical clinics, and things like that. And it was really a catalyst for our company. For years, we were trying to tell people we're not just at the state fair anymore, and people thought we were, and we were trying to get that message out there. Well, this really got the message out there. It ended up, we got invited to everything from bars, parking lots, pet stores, a field in Rockwall, where in 7 hours we sold 5,000 corny dogs during COVID. Again, since all the festivals and events were shut down, every business in DFW was inviting us to come pop up because they thought that they weren't going to have a corny dog at the fair, which they were right. The 2020 State Fair of Texas was canceled. As a child, my mom always told me to have a backup plan in case the fair ever canceled, and I just thought, no way, that's never going to happen. I don't even know how to think about that. And it was canceled. And about 2 days after the State Fair of Texas was canceled, we ended up getting a call from a local chain called Golden Chick, and ended up talking with them and ended up doing a collaboration with Golden Chick. And for 8 weeks, they put us in 187 stores during the time that would have been the State Fair of Texas, just as two Texas brands coming together and helping each other out. And they really helped us during that 8 weeks. And as some of you may know, the State Fair did end up having a drive-through, and it was really incredible that in 2020 we saw 23,000 cars go through the drive-through. But again, the State Fair of Texas sees 2.5 million people, so it wasn't quite the same, but it was pretty amazing experience. This is at the end of the drive-through. We're a little messy, but this is the Fletcher family today. I've got my cousin and his children, and my sister and my niece and her son and my cousin's wife. And so one thing I love about the Fletcher family is that there's still about 15 or so of us that still work in the operations and in the company. We do the state fair as well as some of the catering and events. And I love that not only is it a family tradition for us to get together and do this that we've been doing for 80 years, but we get to be part of our customers' family traditions. So another thing that Fletcher's has been doing is a lot of catering. And I don't know if you guys have been to one of our pop-ups, but we started doing a lot of fair food like funnel cakes and fried Oreos, curly fries. And it's just really been such a fun experience for my family to get to kind of do this new thing for us. And again, like we are really into trial and error and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And it's been really fun to get to like have this iconic company and just kind of play with it and just kind of see what our customers really want and what our audience really wants. Again, like I mentioned, Goldbelly, like we do nationwide shipping on Goldbelly. And so if you have a friend or a loved one, or if you're out of state, you know, you can order on Goldbelly and get Fletcher's Corny Dogs anytime. And so, yeah, so just speaking on entrepreneurs, like I just really like to encourage people. You know, I got my degree in health science. I don't really think I'm using it selling corny dogs. You don't have to have a degree in the field that you're passionate in. And I really do encourage people, if they have a passion, to pursue that. And mine has always been my family business. My neighbor, she's known me since I was 8 years old, and she told me, the weekend that they moved in, I ran up and rang their doorbell, and I was barefoot and just messy hair, and I said, "Hi, I'm Amber Fletcher from Fletcher's Corny Dogs." And so from a child, I just knew this is who I was and what I was going to do and what I wanted to be. And so fortunate that I got to be raised and mentored by my father to end up coming into this position. The position that I do specifically is the head of marketing and event operations. And so I do a lot of the scheduling, and I'll do a lot of the social media and PR. But I really love getting to talk with you guys and know what's important to you. And I like to talk to the customers in line again and just find out what makes it so special to them. What can we do to make it more special? Because I love getting to have that relationship with our customers. And I think, again, I really thank all of our customers for letting us get to create new things and have fun with it. And we really do have the best ones in the world. And I think that's really it on the history. And I'd love to do some questions.
In times past, I brought the microphone to you, but it's a little bit different this year. We have the microphone down here. If you have some mobility issues, I'll bring you the microphone. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask Amber some questions. How has the original, not the jalapeno and cheese and the tofu burger, I mean the tofu dog, but how has the taste of the original State Fair Corny Dog differ from 1942 and today?
So a lot of people will ask us if it's the same recipe or the same product because it tastes different. Well, the recipe, the corny dog mix, the corny dog batter recipe is the same. The hot dog specifically is different. But I do like to tell folks that our beef and pork is just different than it used to be 50 years ago. We do use a really great product. And I also tell people that their taste buds change as well as they get older. People say, I've been eating them for 50 years and they don't taste the same. And I don't know, but I do think it is just a difference in the supply chain, as well as just having quality product, which in the 50s and 40s, that was less of a concern.
What's the future of Fletcher's being involved with the Fletcher's Corny Dog?
So again, Fletcher's is a family business, and one thing that I love is that my cousin has 3 great children, and they've been working in the company ever since they were basically in diapers. And so there is a future for Fletcher's, and it will still be family owned and operated. And in fact, my cousin's daughter, Emma, who's 18, she's very passionate about the company, because people do ask us, what's going to happen, as we get older or such, and is it going to be carried on just like it has been? And the answer is absolutely.
I'm sure you're, based on your presentation, constantly experimenting with taste. How hard was it to get a veggie corny dog?
Well, the experimenting is fun because you get to eat a lot. So again, my degree is in health science, and we just had a lot of customers that wanted a vegetarian option. And so I just decided to go to one of the local grocery stores, and I bought as many vegetarian options as I could. And I just went home and started frying them all up. And then when we had a few that we thought were the winners, we then invited the family over, and the family just stood in the garage and tried all these different vegetarian dogs. And we all unanimously loved one because it tasted the most like our original, and we've been using that one since 2015.
We had the Cuellar's here a number of years ago who founded El Chico's restaurant, and they were talking about how Mama Cuellar, their grandmother, experimented with them when they were children, and they would notice if the grandchildren didn't like this or the children liked that. That's what went on the menu. And then as time progressed, they involved people who were civilians, besides outside the family, to come in to taste, to experiment. Did you like this better? And I've participated in some of those for the high school down here. They get so much money from Pepsi-Cola. You go down there and you taste this chip versus that chip, and whether you like this one or not, that one. And then the school gets so much money for how many people come through. Have you ever done those kind of market studies?
I would say not market studies, but Fletcher's, and we love our customers. And so if we get enough response or enough comments about something, for example, this year we introduced one called Make Mine Texan. It's an all beef corny dog. Our original is beef and pork. And for a while, people have been saying they wanted an all beef option for a multitude of reasons. And so we finally got with Syracuse Sausage in Ponder, Texas, and they developed a beef recipe specifically for us. It even has some brisket emulsified into the hot dog. And so with our veggie dog and the turkey dog, which is just a leaner non-beef, non-pork option, these are things that we wanted to do, but more importantly, that our customers wanted the options. But I would say that as children, my brother and I would we would get fried cheese. So our parents would fry us up cheese at the fair if we didn't want a hot dog. And so in 2017, I believe my brother was like, why are we not selling this? And so we started selling our Cheesy Pup, which is American cheese. It tastes like a fried grilled cheese. But that was kind of that, something they would just feed the kids to just get them out of the kitchen. And then we grew up and we're like, why are we not selling this? This was amazing. So, and it's a big hit for children and adults.
I couldn't help but seeing the fried Oreo. How in the world did you do that?
So I love the fried Oreos. If you've never had one, they're just these ooey gooey, chocolatey, melted, yumminess. There's a brewery in Fort Worth called Martin House Brewing, and they invited us during the pandemic to come pop up with them. They were doing a deep fried Oreo beer, and they asked if we would be willing to make deep fried Oreos to pair with their beer. And I just said, why not? Of course. And we sold out within probably about 45 minutes. I had to run to Walmart and go buy tons of more fried Oreos. And I was like, okay, we've got something here. And so they stayed on the menu.
Any questions from the audience here? Come on, don't be bashful. This is the time to speak up. I would love to hear your favorite stories about. Now, Joe, come on down. You got to tell that story about going steady after eating a Fletcher's corny dog. Come on down. No, it has to go into the camera so that the audience. I'll bring you the microphone, because that's the best story I've heard tonight. I love people's personal stories, her memories of her grandfather, her great uncle, her her father, his brother, anything. So I'll come on down.
Well, while you're walking, I can tell you if you like a good story. My dad said that he was the guinea pig or the taste tester whenever my grandfather was working on the corny dog recipe. And he said that, back then they had thermometers that had mercury in them, and they didn't realize that the thermometer broke and the mercury got into their fryer at the house. And he said he ate corny dogs and he was sick for days. So that's a story he tells me is don't eat mercury. And I have not eaten mercury, so I thank him for that.
Well, I have to tell you, I grew up going to the state fair. Remember when you could win ducks and chickens and all of those things at the carnival? I did that. But a certain boy asked me to go to the fair with him. I was a sophomore in high school and he was a senior. So I said, okay, well, that was way before the fair began, so we began dating. And when we went to the state fair that year, he asked me to go steady, and he gave me his senior ring. And a few years later, we were married.
Aw.
That's a wonderful story.
That's beautiful. Sounds like you need corny dogs for an anniversary.
Well, as a matter of fact, one of my favorite photos you had up there was the couple who got married and had the corny dogs that were married.
Yeah, and they had Fletcher's cater their wedding.
That was very artistic, the way they put that mustard on there.
Yeah.
I would have flubbed it up.
And that's one thing, too. I've actually had people ask me to take photos and do the mustard on their corny dog. And I'm like, you don't want me to do that. I am not artistic, so I'm not a mustard artist.
Any other comments or questions of Amber? There's something mythical about your family. It has mythical status. Forget the corny dog. It's just something. And by the way, I could see your father having a little bit of showman in him too. His presentation.
He was.
Tell us. He must have watched his father. Tell us a little bit about his showman tactics.
Yeah, I would love to talk about my dad. So Neil Jr., or everyone called him Skip. So he lived to be 83, and I'm telling you, he must have lived 15 lives. He was a crop duster. He went into the military as a singer, so he sang. He went to California and did acting school. He managed nightclubs here in Dallas. He was a farmer at one point, and then he flew commercial airlines until he retired and took over the family business. He liked golfing, gold detecting, fishing. He wrote at Lake Tawakoni. He was a writer, a hunting and fishing guide at some point. So he had a million lives, but he was definitely larger than life. A lot of the stories he told, I think he was exaggerating a lot of them, or they may have happened because that's just kind of the life that he had. But he was a singer, and he even, he sang, I think he did a wedding into his mid-70s. I mean, he had such a passion for music and singing. And so that showman acting and singing, that I think was just kind of bred in them. I think that really helped with the family business. I used to say it was like selling snake oil, I would think. If no one knows what the product is, you were going to know. They were going to tell you, and they were going to tell you it was the best corny dog in the world. There's a ballyhoo that we have, and it's funny. It's my grandfather, and he's just trying to sell the product, and it's really funny. He says, there's no waiting here, like there's no line. And I was like, when was there never a line? So maybe that sold it.
One other question I wanted to ask you was, Julia Child came to get a corny dog?
Yeah, Julia Child came one year, and she was, I know that she was testing some of the desserts and the baked goods, and we have a photo of that. We don't have a photo of her eating a corny dog, but I've been told by multiple people, Julia Child. But I do have a picture of Oprah Winfrey eating one, and so I have proof. It happened. You know, there was just crowds of people and security pushing people back, and she just stepped right up onto this platform and walked right up to my mom and my dad, and she ordered 3 corny dogs, and her and Gail sat and ate these corny dogs with mustard and just talked with my family about the business. And she was really amazing that she really wanted to know like who they were and what they were doing and how long they've been there. And I stood in the back just watching it, and we've got some great photos. But I just love that Oprah Winfrey came to Fletcher's and she got corny dogs, and she even took some home in a doggy bag.
And as I recall, didn't that make the Dallas Morning News, her coming in and eating your corny dog?
I believe so.
I was very impressed that somebody would come 1,000 miles to eat the corny dog. One thing I learned tonight, when I'd hear the barker, I didn't realize Big Tex was talking. I thought it was the person at the tent. Now come on down, the world famous Fletcher corny dog. Get one while they last.
Oh yeah, the employees, and they don't do it like as much as they used to, but the employees will call people into them to come have a Fletcher's corny dog. But Big Tex will also tell people too. We've been at the state fair 10 years longer than Big Tex, so we're friends. And so he likes to tell people to come have a corny dog.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Jim Lowe? He was the voice.
I did.
Voice of Big Tex for a number of years, and he himself was an incredible musician, and he also was a music producer and a DJ on WRR, the Library of Laughs. Y'all remember that? Any other comments or questions? Did Julia Child comment on? I mean, it would cause me to get nervous. The world's famous, at the time, the most famous, cook in the world, eating something I prepared. Did you hear any comment about what her feedback was, or?
Well, it was definitely before I was born. I wish I could ask someone, but we have so many articles. I'm sure that there's something that was written at that time. I'm not even sure what decade was it, in the 60s? Maybe?
60s? I would think the 70s.
70s. I was born in 87.
See, Julia Child wasn't quite, her famous cookbook came out in 68, but I think went on PBS, in 70? So I would guess the 70s. Mm-hmm. But she's not, you weren't there.
I'm a millennial.
Do you remember any comments about? Yeah, that's more. And then when was Oprah Winfrey?
So I think Oprah may have been 2009, and I witnessed her eating about 3 corny dogs, and then she took some to go, and she had them with mustard, but it was great. She had a cowboy hat on, and her friend Gail was with her, and the whole family gathered around, and we have this great shot, I wish I'd included it, of her and my mother talking, and it was just, it was a very special moment. I mean, I don't know anyone that doesn't know who Oprah is, which is just great to say that, even Oprah liked him.
Well, my last question to you, we were talking about, I got distracted with the Julia Child, but there are certain families in Dallas that have a mythical status, and you're on the list. I mean, your family has a certain kind of, there's some kind of memory that people evoke. The 9-year-old who pestered their parents until they bought them a corny dog. They remember these stories. So when they hear the word Fletcher, it evokes lots of sentiments and memories and emotions.
I would think it's like Thanksgiving. Food is really tied to emotions. And so, sight, smell, taste, all of those things, I'm sure that it just really does pull on people's heartstrings and their emotions. And it is a very nostalgic item. And when you're doing something like ritual and habitual, people are doing it every year at the same time as it gets fall. And so I think it's just a very nostalgic thing for people. But also growing up, my dad had a sign in his office that said, "This company belongs to the Lord, but it's humbly cared for by the people of Fletcher's." And so I have to think another thing to the success of our company is just that, it's God's gift to us, and we're just trying to take care of it the best way we can.
Well, I think you've done a great job. My great-grandmother wrote 4 cookbooks, and one time she prepared this meal for a taster. She would pick people at random, and it was something like fried chicken and mashed potatoes. something simple. Her recipes were always simple, but her goal was to make it as tasty as possible at the cheapest cost, and nutritious. And she brought in this couple, and then she had the same couple come back next week and cook the same thing, fried chicken and mashed potatoes. And then, but that second week, she would put some fresh flowers on the table, some parsley on the plate. And she said, now, which one did you like, last week or this week? Oh, this week. Well, it was the same recipe done with the same ratios. And that's when she realized the importance of presentation and how you present it to your customers. So can you elaborate?
Yeah. I mean, there's studies done on that as well, especially like, your perception of if you have a great product but bad customer service, you're not going to enjoy that food item as much. But that's one thing that Fletcher's does as well, is for 80 years, everything is still done the way that my grandfather started it. Every hot dog is hand stuck. The mix is made fresh every day. The oil is poured fresh every day. Everything is made to order in the same fryers. They have utensils now that can hold the corny dogs for you, but we stir ours in the oil. Or they even have machines that could make the corny dogs, or machines that can stick the hot dogs. But we want everything to be done the exact same way and method that my grandfather did it. We just feel that, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And he did something magic with that company. And so we try to maintain, same thing with the recipe. It's the same recipe that we've been using. The corny dog mix is the same one that we've always been using. The hot dog has changed over the years. The importance of quality has gone up. More people are health conscious. So one thing I tell people is that our hot dogs, they're what we call full muscle meat. There's no byproducts, fillers, or mystery meat. It's a really good hot dog, which is one reason why it also costs a little bit more than maybe something you go grab at Sonic. But I think that, that goes into it, is the customer service, the methods, the mood that somebody's in when they eat it. And again, at the fair, it's the same. You've got the noises and the smells and the lights, and I think it really pulls on people's heartstrings. And again, we get to be part of that.
It does pull on heartstrings. One time, this has been about 40 years ago, I was with somebody, and they, I told them I was going to go get the corny dog. That's my annual, purchase. And they said, it looks like a greasy spoon. I said, well, you don't have to buy it, but I am. And so as we got up there, she noticed how clean it was. She said, it's not a greasy spoon. This place is spotless. She ended up buying one. But so in addition to all the things you mentioned, it's spotless. I mean, you don't see any trash, dirty dishes. It's spotless.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of perceptions that people just don't understand. Like, I get told a lot, I'm going to go on the first weekend because I like it whenever the grease is fresh. Well, oil is a liquid, it evaporates. And so the grease is essentially always fresh in that we're constantly pouring in new oil. We're constantly changing. I mean, you don't become an iconic brand by having dirty oil. We really want a good product. Everything from the oil to the quality of the sticks to the quality of the meat to even the where we get our corny dog mix. It's a second generation corn mill, and so there's a relationship with them. There's a relationship with where we're getting our sausages and things, because we want not just return customers, but again, we love that people love Fletcher so much. They want us to be part of their wedding, and they want us to be part of their traditions for years to come.
That's the ultimate compliment. When are you going to write a book on the history of the world famous State Fair Fletcher corny dog?
Well, so my dad actually wrote a book, and so it's about 80 pages. And so we've talked about if it's appropriate to release to the public. There's a lot of stories in there that are
those are the best part.
Quite hysterical. But, we have thought about it for a long time. But, we go to the fair and we work the operations at the fair, and then you just get busy and time passes. But, we have been thinking and talking about it.
Amber Fletcher, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much.